Hey guys, we're here again today at HardRacing. Today we're working on our Kawasaki Z125 Pro project bike, and today we're going to be installing these amazingly high quality driven rear sets. And as most of you guys know, Driven has been doing this for quite a while. It's all made here in the USA, top quality aluminum. They use the best components, the best parts. The machining is phenomenal. The anodizing is phenomenal. I just cannot say enough about this company. They go and take a lot of time and R&D these things to design them the best way for everybody. You can use standard shift pattern or GP shift pattern, but the fit, the finish, the design of these things is just phenomenal. They really put a lot of effort into it. It's multi-piece design, which is, a lot of guys don't think about this until your bike falls over accidentally, or you get in a little bit of an accident and snap off a peg or a toe piece, and now you're like, oh no, what do I do? If you get stuff overseas, you got to go source that, and you're talking weeks to get it usually, and it's not cheap. So that's just something to think about when you're buying some components, especially rear sets. It may be cheap up front, but if you ever break anything, you'll wind up having to buy a whole new set just to get replacement parts. So these things made here in the US, you can get all the individual pieces separately. The manual that comes with it has not only the torque specs for everything, very easy to read directions, but it also has full schematics, part numbers for every piece, nuts, bolts, toe pieces, everything can be sourced directly from Driven, readily available. They'll ship it out to you usually the same day. So that's just something that's really a little bit extra that you get with this company, besides the great fit and finish, is just readily available replacement parts. And rear sets are something that can get damaged if your bike falls over or you crash accidentally. Nobody thinks about it, nobody wants to think they're ever going to crash or the bike will fall over, but it can happen. So nothing worse than having a ride scheduled for the weekend, your bike falls over, and now you can't go ride because your toe piece or your foot peg broke off. So something to think about. In addition to the readily available replacement parts, again, these are top quality machined aluminum. Fit finish is phenomenal. They're adjustable. You can put your foot pegs in either one of those 4 holes, so you can get higher or farther back if you want to. They already come, the way they are now, farther back than stock, because the stock ones are already really, really high. So these are basically starting out in the same stock height but farther back. So you have a lot more leg room as you move your foot pegs farther back. Especially for you taller riders, that's going to be a good thing. And the installation is really easy, straightforward. We'll show you next how to do it. But basically they already come almost all assembled. You're just going to have to put your foot pegs in the holes you want, and then mount everything up, and we'll show you how quick and easy that is next. Alright, so before you start installing the rear sets, the first thing you want to do to save yourself a lot of headaches down the road is take a tape measure and measure the foot peg down to the ground and the brake pedal, and on the other side the shifter toe piece. You want those as a reference because you want to know when you install your new rear sets, obviously the pegs are going to be higher. You want to know how much higher to move the toe piece on the shifter and the brake pedal. So basically you want them in the same ratio that they are now. What you don't want is to have the foot peg way up here, pedal way down here, now your foot's all this way or this way, and then you're having to come back and readjust. It just makes it a pain in the butt. So do that ahead of time, saves yourself a whole lot of headache. Just about 10 seconds to take a tape measure. Measure both foot pegs. They should be about the same, about 16 inches. Well, ours has a rear stand under it, so it'll be a little bit lower. And then measure the top of the brake pedal and the top of the toe piece, and then write those down on a piece of paper, so that way when you're reinstalling the rear sets, you can use the same distance between the two of them. So basically, you want to know how much lower the foot peg is, or how much higher the foot peg is than the shift pedal, and how much higher the foot peg is than the brake pedal. And that way you can set up your rear sets and you don't have to sit there and keep coming back, adjusting them. You can do it all the first time and be done with it.
So the first thing you want to do is remove your stock rear sets by removing this bolt back here and these 2 bolts right here. And as you can see, we have our little DIY reverse shift here, just in case for the gals who are wondering what that is. So you do utilize your stock linkage, so just make sure to keep that close by. So the next step is to determine which one of the 4 holes you want to mount your foot peg. So once you determine which hole you want to use, go ahead and take the bolt and put blue Loctite on it before you screw it in. And as per the instructions, it needs to be torqued, this bolt needs to be torqued down to 45 foot-pounds. And the easiest way to do that with the rear set off the bike, obviously, is if you put it in a vise, basically you would put the foot peg in the vise, just enough pressure to keep it from rotating, but that'll allow you to do the torque spec on it. So the next step you want to determine is what shift pattern you want to use. This one's already set up for standard shift. So we like to run ours with GP shift. So in order to do that, what you'd want to do is just unbolt this rod and bolt it up here to this spot for GP shift. Okay, so just to restate, Driven packages these and ships them with the standard shift setup, which is how it's set up right here. If you want GP shift, you would just need to unbolt the rod and bolt it to the top hole right here to get the GP shift reverse shift pattern. And as you can see here, this is how reverse shift will look, bolted up to the top bolt. And once again, any bolt that you are removing and reinstalling or just installing, you want to put blue Loctite on, which is what we did right here. So just take the blue Loctite and put it on the bolt if you are installing it on the reverse shift part, and also on any other bolt that you are installing or pulling off and putting, like the foot peg or any of the other ones. You definitely want to use the blue Loctite. Okay, so the next step is to install the rear set. Take your adapter, take your bolts, reminder to put the blue Loctite on the bolts, and slide the adapter on the back of the bolts, and then you just want to tighten in the bolts with the adapter. So quick note, when you're installing the rear set, lift up on the lever so that this piece is on the outside of the adapter, just like so. So next you install the shift linkage and adjust the rod to put the toe piece at the height that you want. And this is where you want to take those measurements that you got earlier to set the toe piece at the correct height. So for the smoothest shifting, what you want to try to do is make the linkage 90 degrees on both ends. So right here and right here. Go ahead and tighten those 2 jam nuts on the shift rod. So the final step will be to reinstall the bolt on the shift linkage, and once again, just remember to use blue Loctite. And tighten these down to 25 foot-pounds. So the next step, you want to install the foot peg on the brake side. And same thing, you want to match it with the shift side, same height. So if you're using the 0 hole like we are right here, when you turn it around, you'll notice that the bolt is a really tight fit. So to get it in there, you just have to work it. And so by work it, I mean what you're going to have to do is screw it in a little bit, back it out, screw it in, back it out, and then eventually it'll get past the point and just pop right in there. It just has to get past this. It rubs right here just a little bit. Once it gets past that, it'll pop right in. Okay, so next thing you want to do is remove the cotter pin from the back of the master cylinder. Obviously I had this loosened with a pair of needle nose pliers. So lightly push on your brake pedal and that should release the master cylinder. So obviously they do not retain the brake switch. So we've seen some guys make it work, or you can go with an aftermarket brake switch, pressure switch like this one right here. And this replaces your banjo bolt and it activates the brake lights. And the other option is to just apply your front brake when you apply your rear brake, so that you don't have to use that. That's the other option. So you can either use this, make your own, or just use your front brake in conjunction with your rear brake when you apply it. So next you want to go ahead and remove the foot controls. So you want to go ahead and put the rear set into position like so, making sure that the master cylinder slides over this tab. And then put your bolt in, again with Loctite on it. So next you want to go ahead and install the pin through the master cylinder. Take your washer, install it on the back of the pin, and then last take your cotter pin and install it into the back. And next take a pair of needle nose pliers and bend the cotter pin back into position. Okay, and go ahead and tighten these to 25 foot-pounds.
Alright, so basically, if you wanted to retain the stock brake switch, you could cut a little bit of wire and connect it to that, and then connect it to the back of the pedal. We've seen lots of guys do that, so you still have the mechanical one. Or, like Carrie said, you do the hydraulic brake switch. It's optional, that ties into your brake line. Or, you just always make sure you apply the front brakes when you apply the rears, so that way the brake lights are off. Either way, they all work. But this is basically the final installation view of what it looks like after it's all done. Again, top quality fit finish, foldable toe pieces, beautifully machined rear sets, and obviously again they're for racing, so they have a very aggressive knurled toe piece, foot peg. And what we like to do so they don't eat a hole through the bottom of our shoes and boots is we take a file and just lightly graze over the tops of them. You're not trying to shave the foot peg down, you're just trying to take the very, very little bit of the edge off. And that way it won't eat a hole through your boots. Obviously when you're racing you want aggressive foot pegs to keep your feet from sliding off, which causes you to crash. But for street guys you don't need quite as much aggressive knurl, so you can just take a file and lightly take the very tips off. Very easy to do, doesn't mar it up, doesn't look bad, you don't even really notice it. And one quick note here, the adjustability of the holes obviously raises the foot peg up, and then you can also do it back. It also changes the distance from here to here, so if you have smaller feet, 8, 9, 10s, and you move back, you can also always adjust the toe piece, put in another set of holes to move it a little closer to keep this distance about 6.5 inches for what generally people have. But again, if you have large feet, you can move it back and have the longer distance. Totally customizable. That's what makes these things so nice. They're fully adjustable and customizable for your preference. And here is the shifter side, all set up for GP shift. Again, that's GP shift. Down here would be standard shift. So for us, we go down to the gears instead of up. Personal preference, totally customizable. That's the beauty of these rear sets. So if you enjoyed the video, be sure to click thumbs up and also subscribe so that way you're notified. We'll have lots of more videos coming for this bike and other bikes, so that way you'll get notified. And if you have any other questions, comments, or whatever, go ahead and give us a holler on the phone. You can send us an email. We're on the forums, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, just about everywhere. And most of all, check out our website and we'll get you taken care of. That's HardRacing.com.